Hello everyone, welcome back to the workshop. So in recent discussions we're talking about hand mortising, and what I've got a piece here is a piece of 4x2 timber from just the local merchants, and I've laid a set of lines around and then I've set my mortise gauge to my chisel, and I've deliberately chosen to set it straight through that knot there. So I've deliberately chosen to go through there, just to show you. So the leg of my bench is here. So I'm going to get as close over the leg of the bench as I can. And I might just be tempted just to drop a hole fast in there. So I've got it as close to the leg of the bench as I can. And I am just going to hold it down with a hole fast. Okay. I'm then going to roughly eye up the centre of my mortise, place my chisel between my lines. And as I said before, this is literally a sharp pry. Okay. And I've already gone down quite a way. But you'll notice I started in the middle. And the reason I started in the middle was because I don't want to damage this edge and I don't want to drive my mortise at that angle. Okay? That's why I started quite a way back from the edge. Now I'm going into my knife line this side. Okay, and you'll notice I'm rolling away from my mortise edge, and that's because I don't want to get into a situation where I'm rolling the edge. And even on the door lock, the video I did about the lock mortise chisel, people were saying, oh, it doesn't matter, you won't see it, it's under the faceplate of the lock, etc. It's not good practice to roll the edge of a mortise. You just have to get used to not doing it. One of my students last week obviously had got into the habit of letting the chisel roll the mortise on a door lock because his faceplate is getting taken out of the way, because that's the only hand mortising he ever does. Because if he was making something, he'd automatically go to the hollow chisel mortiser. And I'm sort of want to prove that actually we don't have to go to the hollow mortiser, the hollow chisel mortiser every time. I do use a hollow chisel a lot, but it's still important that we can all hand mortise. And the reason being is that at some point in your career, you're gonna have a really odd mortise and you're gonna need to hand mortise it. So, and I am taking my time with this because I'm doing it for the camera. I'd normally be out and in the other side by now, because this is a quick and dirty job. Okay, with the true chisels that are designed for the work, they're designed for a leathering, and we need to use them as they were intended to be used. You know, they were intended for a leathering. We need to give them a leathering when we're working, because that is how we cut efficient mortises, by hand. It's not that hand mortising is slow, and it's not that it's not repeatable. That's not why mortises came to the fore. You know, they are incredibly efficient tools, and we should be using them because they are incredibly efficient tools. They're also incredibly repeatable tools. But what we shouldn't be is afraid to cut a mortise by hand. You see, that's a lot denser sound. That's because that's in that knot. And I've chosen to put it into that knot. because it makes my point nicely. I'm trying to make the hand mortising is not exactly slow. I've chosen not to do a big mortise because it's very comparable to what you do on a fine window. I probably should have used a 1/2 inch chisel, but I didn't. Okay, so I'm just going to pick this back up for the camera again because I want to show you, just with those few strokes I've done there, I'm already through and out of that knot. Like I say, I don't do every mortise that I do by hand. Why would I? You're talking to a man who owns, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, who owns 5 mortises, 6 mortises. So, you know, that I don't do everything by hand, but I do have the machines. But I also have the ability to do it by hand if I ever need to. You know, power goes off, I can continue working. Because I was taught with hand tools, I continue working. If on site, I need to do a repair on site and I haven't got any machinery there, what does it matter? I've got the tools. I can do it. And this is why it's important to learn hand mortising and to continue to practice it as well, even after when we finish college. Because how many people, one of the guys on the course last week, he said to me, that's the first time other than a door lock I've cut a mortise on site for hand. And he said the door locks I would drill out anyway. And that is something that we need to change. You know, we need to be ensuring that hand skills remain, because for a lot of what I'm doing, they are important. You know, it's important that hand tool skills remain, because a lot of what I'm repairing was made by hand. So if I understand how it was made originally by hand, I can repair it by hand. And that's why it's really important to maintain hand tool skills. And you'll notice that I set the gauge to my chisel size. I have over the years made mortises that are bigger than the chisel I had in my hand, and I have to say it's not always useful, it's not always good to do that, because you can wonder. It's possible, you know, it is possible, but it's definitely preferable to use a chisel the right size. So if I'd got quite a chunky door style and I wanted to put, for example, I don't know, a 20mm mortise in a, or you know, a 3/4 inch mortise in a door style, but I'd only got a 1/2 inch chisel, I'd probably put 2 1/2 inch mortises in and have 2 tenons side by side. It gives me a little bit more work to do, but it makes chopping those mortises more accurate. And the eagle-eyed among you will notice I've just rolled that corner. That's the only problem when you start to get a bit deeper. You know, I'm going 4 inches deep with a very narrow chisel. Sometimes you do just get a problem like that. No, I'm through down there. I know I'm through down there, and that's how I rolled it before. I'd shot through. And instead of pushing away, I roll. This is the difficult bit now, because it's such a deep mortise and it's a very narrow mortise. It can be very difficult to make sure you've cleared all your waste out. Okay. Right, so what I'm going to do now, just to make sure I've got all my waste out, I'm going to sit it over my vise. And I'm just going to use the chisel push my waste out through the bottom, because the more I get out, I can see where I need to cut any final cuts. I do a lot of through mortising. If you're doing stop mortising, it's not quite so easy. You do need to sort of have an idea. You know, these days if I was doing a stop mortise for something, I'd just put a marker pen line on the side of my chisel to the depth I need it to go, and I chop it out to that depth. But it's definitely easier to do a through mortise, I think. I've always thought the same. And actually that's where hollow chisels came into their own. They make such beautiful stopped mortises that are a true depth, accurate depth, repeating depth. That's where those tools really do come into their own. But that's it, to all intents and purposes. That is a through mortise cut. Okay, got a little bit of tear out here, and that's just from where the grain's pulled. And that's because I chose to go into that knot, and it's just let it prise out that little bit. But that's it. That's what it's about, guys. You know, you might want to do a bit of fine tuning, and this is where I would then come into this with a bevel edge chisel and just fine tune it if I needed to. But I wouldn't take anything off the width unless I had to. I would make sure, you know, that my actual my tenon fits to the mortise. I would just pair the ends if I needed to. So that's it, guys. That is literally all there is to hand mortising. Okay. And I've not done that at my usual pace. I've not gone super fast at that. So there you go. Keep practicing, guys. You know, you keep practicing, you'll get really good and you'll get really quick. That's it for now. See you on the next video.